you want berries? He said, "Please, I took berries." It's really hard to see. And anyway, he took off. My white guy took off. Later on, one of the men came back and I went to go see the rancher. What the rancher was going to tell him was they want to turn the bull out to walk off with that bull. So that's not the only time they say it was really hard, they say, to communicate. Even my two brothers that went to school just over here at Peterson Crossing, where you just went through their big river. They went to school there in 1950, first time in the fall, and they never speak one word English. They have really tough times, I heard. Yeah. And even me, I went there about 1955 or 56. I don't understand English, but we learn a lot. First time our people met the white people was when they're coming down the river on the boat. A young boy was playing down by the river, our people. And he started running, but they told him to come back here. He came back to the boat, and then this is what he described. This true story that passed on. They told him to come back, and he came back to them, and they did fire. He said, over the fire, they put something in it boiled. They put something in it, and then it turned red. They took it out, and then they gave me something white stuff. And they put some red sticky stuff on it, which is jam. If you could listen, I'll tell this story here. Then they give him jam and bread, and he bite into it, and then, boy, that's good. Really good, soft. Then they give him tea. They put it in this clear white thing, which is cup. They put white stuff in it, and they stir it and give it to me. He said, when I drank that, I nearly fell backwards. He said, it's so good, which is tea and sugar. And just before they leave, they shook his hand, all of them. He said their eyes blue, and then their skin just white. White hair, white beard. Just before they go back on the boat, they shook his hand. And they took off and waved at him, and he ran home. He said, run home, and told everybody. And then people run to the river. They said, nobody there, except they feel the coals where they have fire. It's still warm. Warm. And that was the beginning. And later on, he come back to the river, but nobody, they said, until the following year. And later, they teach them how to smoke pipe. And they cough, and they smoke pipe, cough. And they give them snuff. They teach them how to shoot guns. And those are the story that passed on to us today. day, we want to put everything down, so you and I can learn from the next generation.
Okay, so now that you guys all talk to each other and find out what's our common knowledge, anybody want to share some of the things that is common knowledge amongst the Denny people? There'll be a mic going around. Okay, we got the mic going up there. We have two mics here this morning.
I was just sharing a thing that I got this paper from the workshop. And, it has to do with this eagle. Anyway, this eagle was flying by and somebody shot it down. And it fell by the farmer's field. And the farmer seen it. Then he picked up this eagle. Then he took it home to mend its wings. So when he did that, he put that eagle in his chicken coop. So the eagle, he looked at these chickens and he thought, gee, what do you do funny, they walk funny. And, you know, pretty soon, the eagle, he started to act like a chicken. He started to eat like chicken. And he said, well, if they sleep like that, I'll sleep like that. So, in time gone by, he healed up. But, so he thought he was a chicken. The whole thing was open, he could fly away, but he just stayed there. So one time this elder was walking by, a native elder, and he seen this eagle in the chicken coop. So he went over to the farmer and said, what's that eagle doing in a chicken coop? Oh, he said, he could fly away anytime he wants to. He's all healed up. Somebody had caught it and brought it in here to heal. So the elder said, can I take that eagle? And the farmer said, sure, you take him. That'll be one less to feed. Anyway, he took the eagle and he took him up on a mountain and he talked to him. You know, you're not a chicken. You're an eagle, you're courage, you're power, you're all that stuff. You fly over that land, and you're powerful. So anyway, he tried to throw him off the mountain, but each time he did, the eagle ran. He hopped around like chicken. He was still thinking he's a chicken. Finally, after a long time, he finally convinced him that eagle was an eagle. And finally, when he let the eagle go, all his senses started to come back, that he's an eagle. So he soared the sky, and it all came back to him. He was the eagle, he had the power, he had the courage, and all his identity came back to him. I guess the moral of that story is that sometimes we have lost identity. We think something that we're not. So that was a story about that eagle. Lost identity, and then he got it back. So I think, and then this workshop, some of us will get back our identity. I think we have it, but more so. Like,
I work for Earth Lake College as an Aboriginal grad coach. So I've been there for 4 months now, and I've been working really hard to try to get them to hire our people to come and teach the beaver and Cree language, but I'm not getting anywhere hardly, but I'm still going to keep on doing this because I really think it's important. I grew up in the old Blueberry Reserve. We had Cree and Beaver. We grew up in Cree and Beaver language until we started the Indian Day School, which was, and then from there they tell us that, get props for talking English, for talking language. So that's how we lost our language. But now, I know I work in education and I'm really trying really hard. I'd love to bring back our language because with our language, I have a little bit of knowledge of both Cree and Beaver. My granddaughter Angel says we're Creevers, and we're Creevers. Anyways, so I really would like to bring that back because my mom's still a fluent Beaver speaker, and then the way she explains it is that when you talk in the Beaver language or Cree language, it goes in waves. But if you say it in English, it just goes straight, and it sounds cold and hard. It's not like our Denabelle language when we speak. We use a lot of body language, and it means something, right? It means a lot. So I'll be talking to a couple of the elders because right now I'm trying to, I keep teaching 14 John that they think 14 John is, we don't get any recognition. But I always tell them, 14 John Beaver Band was one, Blueberry and Lloyd was one 14 John Beaver Band. Charlie Lake was named after one of our famous dreamers, Charlie Lake's uncle. But nobody knows that. And we do have a lot of knowledge. And I told them about how the Monty Indian Reserve was taken away from us because for the soldiers that were coming back from World War II. So I do a lot of teaching because I think it's really important that if we bring back our knowledge, our kids will be proud of who they are if they have a little bit of even just a basic words, and then it'll get better and better. So that's my story I want to share today. Like I really want to thank you very much, Herbert, for doing it. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So Sandra, that's very informative. What I heard you say is that language is important to do that. But at the same time, language is multiple languages. Today, our common language is English. That's how we understand. But the elderly people, their language is their original Beaver or any language. That's important. Back in the day, generations before us spoke multiple languages. Grandpa spoke 4 or 5 languages. So maybe language is a key thing. As long as it's multiple languages, but using your own is very important. Sign language, body language, how we present ourselves, understanding our history, knowing the truth of that history. That is why we're doing this here, because we at this time, if we don't do it, we're going to lose lots of stuff, because a lot of the elders are getting way past their time. And we need to make sure that we capture and follow what they want us to do. So that's one of the things that I like to say, that we're very proud and knowing that we listen to the elders, what they say to us, and how we want to govern and take leadership role is based on what the elders want. If elders are against it, we say, okay, we'll hold off on it until we get a consensus. So what we're really building is a nation using our cultural foundation of knowing who we are. Just that idea to be aware of that so that you can continue doing things in a good way. That's why the elders tell us that. The story Jerry talked about, there's a moral to every story. And I think that's a common thing that I'm discovering. There's every story has got a moral story or a moral teaching to that. How to behave, what to say, especially when you're in public. They always said, "Ujamatana." That's one person that I would say does that all the time. May, Elder May Assassin. Every time we ask her to come and to do something, yeah. She put on her outfit, as you can tell. It's the connection to the greater of our ancestors. And we have samples of a lot of that stuff here, jackets and things like that. The beauty of the work of our ancestors and our grandparents, people, that's the beauty. There's a common thing about the Nizam, Beaver, Dene people, is that the symbology comes from the land. I just noticed Beatrice putting out some hides. A lot of our women, they're so powerful. They're so strong. That's what we call it. The The Beaver women are strong. Because whenever they make a hide, it's a lot of work. And our people still do it. They still do it here. And even Elder Maeve recently made some hides. She said, after this, I'm going to retire. She said, it's too hard work. She did that 10 years ago. That is the power of that. That is so beautiful to see that kind of hard work to practice and pass on their knowledge. So we need to figure that out. How are we going to pass that on? Because she's concerned her grandkids is not picking it up. She said, they're not picking it up, they're playing computer. So there's a different world we're living in. So now, how do we, if the kids are in the computer world, we need to put the content into the computer world. So as elders, we got to be creative too. You know, we got to be creative and smart and say, okay, those people are playing with computers. Well, let's get somebody to help us put some knowledge into that computer so that we can pass it on. So this is where language app comes into play. Those guys are amazing. The First Peoples language apps. We want to go with language apps to make sure that we put important things in there so that you know. There's digitalization. Big process right now. Everything is becoming digitalized. That's why we're documenting everything. But at the same time, we're going to take what we know about our ancestors and translate it into the future. One of the things, for example, we are negotiating with government. And who documents the story? It's the lawyers. We need to, and we will put language translator into those agreements too. That's what the council, chief council, and Doyle committed to do that because of what people said. But we don't understand what you're saying. It's lawyer talk. Okay, now that's a whole new thinking that we got to come up with to translate some of that lawyer talk so that people can understand what kind of agreements we're making with government or industry. That's a really important thing. Anybody else want to say something? Okay, Mike, we need the mic over there. Oh, where's the mic? Sorry, somebody had a mic over here first. Okay, we'll come to you later.
My name is George Shepard, and I come from the Beaver First Nation, 20 miles I love it. And I was happy to come. I didn't know of this meeting for a week and a half ago. My cousin Terrence furnished a concert. He said there's a Beaver gathering, Dene gathering. I said, where? He said, Doyle. I remember when I was a kid, my mom used to cry. She wanted to come to St. John, and she never did make it.
She died in 2000, and two times I'll make the trip. I do it for my mother. But anyway, my dad told me a story how the beaver went up east of High Level. Their first journey started here and they moved the journey to Rocky Mountain House. I guess they didn't like it over there, so they made it back to High Prairie. A lot of these people from there come back this way. A lot of them went north. They swam their horses and stuff across the Peace River, and somebody told me down Lincoln, and they sell Charles Lake, they call it a Lacey. And my dad's mom, my dad died 3.5 years ago. He was 95 years old. He used to tell me, my dad's mom's mom, that's my grandmother, used to cry. She used to say, Kula tanas sakuna sakaka. She said, my dad told me, "Icha chana, macha chana, kaka vadete, hukashi." She was blind. She died at 103 years old. I used to go there for rabbit snares, two of my grandmothers. And anyway, I'm glad I came. I hope this gathering happens every year. We really need it, especially the younger generation. Like, I don't have a problem talking Beaver. My grandmother made sure that let's start this gathering. Let's see, the government had to step in for funding. With the right tools, it'll happen. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Hello? Can you hear me? Oh. I guess that I came from Boyd, and my mom and dad, they're from here. And that guy that signed the treaty, Chief is my brother. And that his son very attached to my dad. My mom is Ben, Alice Ben, and then so her mom is, I guess, got married, so I learned a lot from my grandma. My dad died when I was 9 years old. And that one day, my brother, Jerry, three boots. And so I was playing baseball. And so the grandma came over and she had these three boots. And so I told her, I don't know want to eat it, I, whatever. Oh, very, to the loose fight, and that's the whole thing that beat me very, lost, so, someday I hope I will come on out with it. So that's about it. That's about, that three years I got here. And so anyway, for about 19 years, I guess I was on the reserve. And then got married at non-leave. And so I still talk on that. I see my people out there and I talk. He said, it's okay, it's your mom. I guess I never said.
He asked me what's the difference between the high view and the, and it's quite a bit different from my side of a story like a real old man school. And my grandma, when they really talked to me a long time ago, you can understand them, but you can just about picture what they're talking about. Strongly. You wouldn't say the word about it. The word from old people telling a story. I couldn't really say the word today. Maybe I can now. But I wanted to try with Sammy one day. Sammy working with me. Maybe we're just going to talk about real low leaders at a long time ago. It's really one word they say, something different. Something different. Just one word. That's why we have to learn exactly. We all want and for the body where we are. We're no different than the others on the block. We all everywhere where I go to conference, they look at on the lot just one on page 8. We all think alike, we eat all the different food things, but our symbol is different. Like you go down to Stony area or go down the block, the crow or eagle, or they pray to eagle, they have sent message for them to Papa. And then you go down up and off and higher over, have sent message by them to have. The only thing is so different on a lot of people, but other than that, we all speak alike, but our dialect is so different. Like halfway, they grew up with the people, we all grew up with the people. We understand each other, but the dialect is all different from people. That's why we have to keep our language. If we just say the word anything we write, down 50 to 60 years, it's going to be way out. Without the dialect, like only outside. If you spell it like only outside it, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. That's why we have to go to Language Institute to learn all the dialects. I went to get caught on it. Language Institute back in 70s. Early 70s, late 70s. For 2 weeks in the fall, 2 weeks in the spring. Where I learned dialect. You got to work hard before you get right to the top. I've been getting about a lot of camp back in early 90s for first people. And then now, in the town, once getting my honorary doctorate degree, so you gotta work hard to get to the top. There's no half chance top. If you want to language, go ahead, even after I'm gone, every pass on, the language will be still there. For the kids down the street, I really think that if you need the support you want it and you're in the right place. If your leader doesn't support you, you are on your own, on our own. How many years? Sometimes we get $20,000 to work. The work as long as the money lasts, that is about 2 years, 3 years. But we've been steady here now over a year. About the baby still works. Very, very important work. Leave something behind you, even get the house. A lot is important for a lot of people. We worked on some of that. I see so long.
So what Billy was talking about, in my interpretation of what he's saying, is that the language is actually quite easy if you grew up with it, but when you're not, it's still different when you have all these different dialects and different way of writing it based on the linguistic context of it. We do need a school. I think we can be able to set up a language institution again, that they used to have the Dene Language Institution, and next year we'll be hosting the Dene Language Conference here because they're looking for someone to do that. So council have already agreed to do that, so we just got to decide to do it. And I think based on what people are saying, yes, we need to host our own schooling system on languages so that we can be able to write it, speak it, express it in many forms. So I think that's the idea here. So we got another. And I want to say something with knowledge. Won't you open your thoughts, you on that?
want to talk about is the challenges of teaching language. I have been trying to teach language for the last 10 years, and it's very hard due to no funding and our kids, as most of you know, the majority of them are either on drugs or that is one of the biggest challenges is kids in like over 16 to 40 say, I have a son who's 42 and he barely speaks Beaver, even though I try to teach him Beaver. And the rest, I have like 3 other children, they don't speak. And I've been trying to like teach them, and my grandkids, I try to teach them too. But I think as elders of our community, we need to do more. And I know in Blueberry, we counted, there's only 31 people who are over 55 plus who speak Beaver. And the rest are all, they don't speak at all. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we face as the Rizal. We need to try to get our language, and I'm so grateful for Dory and whoever put this on. I think we need to do more of that, and that way, we can connect with other people, with other Dene-speaking people, and we can share our ideas, and we can share, the challenges that we all face. And I'm going to try to teach my way of living what my mom and dad have taught me. And to this day, I still do moose hide. My husband and I do a 3-week moose camp every year. And there we teach our grandkids, our children, like how to prepare a moose and all the way down to making moose hide. And we have our families from Beaver First Nation come and join us, and it's a really good thing. I think everybody needs to do that. That way, you keep the tradition alive. And I wanted to share those with like the young people today. And once again, I'm so grateful for Lloyd for putting this on. And hey, we're trying to meet. I hope Heavenly Father, we're trying to until next time, none of wishes. Have fun tonight.
I'd just like to explain the song that we sang earlier. It was passed on from one of our elders. Always told us, if you all come together as a Dene person, if it's kind of hard, it's a song where Sendo Dine means my relation. If you sing that song, you'll give the energy to everything. That's what we need. Masi.
Prophet River has just arrived.
Hello. Gary, very appreciated that we all got together again. Like the first time in history, somebody like you that put this together. Remember our language and remember where we all come from. And the old time over there, Billy, you have the history that you can share with everybody else. As Brother asking, you speak the language, and you was one of the person that carried on to help the young generation how to speak our own language. We're losing our culture. There's a lot of ways you gotta backtrack yourself, but there's, elders like you that can give us strength and carry on with life. Thank you, Billy. Always be your friend.
Thank you. Anyone else want to say something right here? Perfect. Okay, Mike?
Hello, my name is Mary Francis from Beaver First Nation. I'm happy I came down over here. I've been over here for St. John twice before, and I know Billy here. I know a few people that I met. The time I came was about talking in Beaver language. That's what we come over here for. Me, myself, I teach Beaver language at home. I go to the school, I teach the kids. And whenever they ask me to go teach, I teach. Because I don't want to lose our language. There's a lot of young kids that don't talk. That's why I'm trying my best. Just like Billy said before, I go lay down. I want to keep teaching. I want to keep talking to the young people. Because I know nobody else is trying to do that. They asked me one time, so I did. And when I did what they asked me to do, I never back out. I always did my best to teach my language. I love my language. I was in residence school for 10 years. I kind of lost it a little bit, but when I got home, I left school. I didn't have no mom there to be with me. But my grandpa and my dad, they kept talking to me in Beaver, so I got my language back. And I taught my language good. That's how you have to learn, is try to teach the younger ones. Sometimes I talk to my grandkids in Beaver. Even my great-grandson, I talk to him in Beaver. I want them to learn. My daughter, Connie, is here with me. She's one of them that's trying to teach Beaver, learning to talk Beaver. And I hope she keeps that up. Maybe she'll make use of it one day ahead. That's all I have to say. Because I always like to talk in my language. Thank you.
Just before, oh yeah, we have got somebody over there? Okay. Jane's gonna go after that.
Hello. One thing that we need to do as Dene people is no matter how much we love our grandkids, we gotta learn to shut the phone and whatever they're on at night, to shut them off. That's not teaching them anything at all. Like as for me, I'm over here. My grandson, I checked the iPod. It was shut off 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm still waiting for text, but they must be sleeping. Him and my son. My son and my grandson, those are the things we gotta try to get away. They're not taking them anywhere. Because we gotta, no matter how much we love our kids, we have to. They learn from it in a good way, but some in a bad way. So I always correct them once they wake up. I tell my son, I say, you have to teach your son this and that. young kids don't intend to listen to us. They go after God once in a while, but we can never give up on them. We've got to keep trying to talk to them so they can get on track. That's how our elders taught us many years ago. I remember when I was growing up, I was raised by an elder, my grandma. Every time on a Sunday during the day, Sunday morning, I would hear this elder drumming, singing a prayer song. For some reason, I went over there, I sat on a wood box, listened to this elder as a young boy. Maybe that's the only reason why I'm here today. Maybe. I'm thankful for that elder. He's long gone now, but he was a good teacher. A lot of them are gone today, but they were my good teacher. I thank them today. When I sing with a drum up there, I used to I wonder if I'll ever sing like that. And I used to lay down in the tea time swing in the grass and watch the elders drum. I used to think, how do they sing, even though the songs are not written down? But today, a lead singer starts singing, the song pops out. I start singing out of nowhere. I thank them for that today. So, even today, I'm surprised. The things that I do. I'm all over the community, going places, but I thank my elders. They were the reason why I know what I know today and I'm where I am today. Must see for them. That's why we need to teach our kids. No matter how much we love our grandkids, we got to learn how to shut the gates off from them and talk to them. Because as a parent, as a grandparents, we are the teachers. Must see. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. James Emerson, the Chief for Democracy. Just wanted to share a bit on the language. Earlier when I opened up, I said that not only is the retention of the language important, but I think it's also important for us to include the growth of the language. Because there's a lot of things that have been introduced to us in our era, even before us, that we don't have words for. And when you look at the growth of language, even if you look at the English language, or any language in this world, you do the study of words, the origin of words. And they call that etymology, study of origin of words. So when you study the words carefully, even in Lenin, you can actually tell where it came from. And that's an important thing. The one thing I wanted to start off with is in English, you know how people say, I never say goodbye. I don't like saying goodbye because it means I'll never see you again, right? But if you look at the origin of the word goodbye, it's actually a blessing word. It's derived from saying, God be with you, God be with ye, right? So that's where goodbye comes from. So if you want to say goodbye to anybody when you leave for the day, by all means say that, because you're really actually trying to go with God, right? Even if you look at the Spanish word, adios, right? A means with. Dios means God. So, with God, go with God. Anyway, that's the introduction to etymology. So, in the Danish language, I created a word, which is a word for really something new to us today, right? You know how we use the cell phone, we have a radio, we have walkie-talkies, and what propagates your message from one point to another is the radio waves, right? And we have no word for that. And when you look at electricity, the one that goes to the wire in your building, we have a word that we say either a washing fire or moving fire. pulling out, and so we refer to it as for electricity. But then when I look at the words such as SIWM, so this is open water wave. So when there's an open water wave moving like this, right, we call it SIWM. So really that means water spirit. If you look at the word we call wolves in general, SIWM. So we hear it in the spruce trees, but we can't see it. So we call it SIWM, right? So spruce spirit. So in a similar way, when we look at radio waves, we know that it travels waves, right? So we can call it koyone. So that's the word I introduced as a way of small growth, but it's a beginning. So when you say to Gabriel and I talk about this, so that koyone right? I'll use the fire spirit to send the message. So that's just, I wanted to say that because I wanted to introduce, there is a possibility that we can grow the language and not just retain the language. And that's important. And the other one that I was asked, what do you call a laptop, right? I said, well, laptop is a woke, right? A woke, or you can call it actually translated intended as laptop. Narrative.
Can you give us a word for texting then?
Well, texting really is like just answer. So anyway, come October, when we have the larger gathering of the international level of many people, I think those are the things that we need to kind of develop so that we do a PowerPoint presentation or whatever, so that we get ideas to a larger group area. And if you look at Chinese people, they have really the largest population in the world. And they have the Mandarin, and they have, there's so many dialects that they have. What they do is they develop a simple Chinese or simple language that everybody understands. And I'm not sure how they did it, but I know they introduced it back in the 1950s, and it's been growing. So today, everybody uses simple Chinese as a national language. Even the government uses it. So that's the way you do it. And I know back a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was having a meeting with the northern folks in Yellowknife, and they were talking about actually selecting a Dene community. Some words, it's I guess the least touched by the outside person, where they mostly speak the language. Everything that they do every day, they speak the language, right? And perhaps as one of the ways of making developing a national Dene language, like anything, when you introduce it, people have to be willing to actually exercise it, learn it, and use it, right? In a local, you can continue using your local dialect, and if you want everybody right across the Dene community to understand each other, that's one way of doing it, is like developing some kind of international national language of the Dene people. So a lot of possibilities. We have, I guess, in the eyes of the world, we're kind of a drop in the bucket, so to speak, in terms of how many people that speak Dene language. But anything is possible in this world. It's just having the will to do it can be done. But the most important thing is like in your dialect, the one that you understand, you really study the language. How did some words form? And you learn from actually where the words came from, and you're able to develop other words that we didn't have. And that's what I wanted to share with you, just in brief. Perhaps when we're meeting in taught in Calgary. We can use some more, bit more examples like that. So thank you. Thank you. Sound out.
I really like the idea of the international Dene language. That's a really good idea. I think on an international level or on a global level, we can formulate a language that is similar for something. Like we need to decide what is it that we're going to make a language for. Like if you look at the history of language, one of the things that really impresses me is that our people are really entrepreneurs. You know, a lot of the things that when we were growing up, it's the women that made these moccasins and things like that, that actually made supplement income for us to survive. And they still do that today, which is amazing. I mean, they still do those kind of things. So we have an elder here that's got something for sale. A no-whatever. That's what they use to flushing. He's got 4 of those things that he wants gas money to go to bingo. No. 75 each. Those are special. Those are all museum pieces. Plus also we got some hides here that, you know, those are things that we do. We actually have a program here in Doig. We call the Hides and Furs program. Jerry's leading it, and I also do that. So we're all people, traditional people come here to, and yeah, moccasins, all those things. Those are all local. These are what people bring in when they need a little bit of spare cash for gas or food or whatever they need. We have a program here through our trust. We developed it where people can bring in things traditionally, and then we buy it off them. So that's one of the ways of building the economy of our cultural people, to get them, to encourage them to continue doing those things and then pass it on. Some of the things that I'm hearing that's really interesting is that we have a very sophisticated worldview. When we start to think about the language and the complexity about it, even linguistic people can't figure it out. Each one of them do different things. So we do need a common way of doing it. Like, for example, Danizar science or Dene science. Why can't we build a program? Why things happen. This may be something we can call it. There's always a reason why things happen. So like there's a story, Sammy will probably tell you, how did the red fox get its color? Right? I mean, that's a very important scientific study. There's a reason why that happens. There's even a thunder story, Natane story. Long ago, this young boy was Natane was throwing down lightning down to the people. People were getting all fed up with it. There's just too many of them. You're just throwing them down. And it inspired me to your story about cutting down digital platform or showing tough love discipline, because that's one thing that's missing in our communities right now. Raising children with discipline, with tough love. Some people call it tough love. Other people just kindness. You know, you show kindness and say, but there's a time for everything. Just like there's a song for everything. And I think a lot of those things is what we need to start to think about as what is really our way of being. How does the singer come up with a song? You know, those are the kind of things that are very sophisticated. If you start to ask them, they'll just say, oh, it just happened. No, I think there's a science to this. There's a really knowing of practicing symbolic picture, like Billy talked about the language is like a picture. Okay, what does that mean? If it's like a picture, maybe it's symbolic, that we need to be able to come up with a symbolic way of teaching certain things. I heard there was challenges in teaching. is very, very challenging. If people are not willing to learn, if you can't teach anything, you know, just like the old story, you know, you lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. The same thing. But a lot of our people like to have too much drinking. That's a challenge. We want them to actually become part of the community, to offer something. It's just like ceremonies. When we have a big ceremony, people have to come with something. Just like when this meeting is about for us to get ready for this international presentation. What are we going to bring forward? Who's going to bring it? What is it that we're going to share with it? That's why we started this thing. 31 people in Blueberry speak in Beaver. Huh? All of 400 or 500? That's really, really on the verge of extinction. See, that's what we're talking about. On the verge of extinction. That means it'll be wiped out. We are really at a fine line. We need to get all those speakers working to teach it. And also there's a lot of silent speakers. This is what we call those people. They know something, but they don't speak. That's a huge number. That's probably a big number of a lot of the people. So we got language people, First Peoples. We need to talk with them about that. You know, they're here. That's why we invited them. We want them to hear what the people are saying, so that we can actually formulate a program to start talking about how do we get those 31 people to become teachers of what they know, pass it on to those ones that know it but don't speak it. So now we've got a whole bunch of people that can pass it on. We've got to practice it. I think that's the main thing. There is also some positive, beautiful things going on. People still go to bush camps. People go hunting all the time. Of course, it's different than we used to be. Now they have high-powered scope guns and nice pickup trucks. You know, so they do some really easy to go hunting nowadays as before, right? So there is challenges for sure, but however, there is the willingness. Look, all of you are here today because we're all in the same boat. That we want to pass on what we know, but it's hard for us to do it. We need support, and this is what's happening. And then on a bigger level, we're going to get everyone to support it. One of the big things that I always stood up for is our people. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? If we had our own school to do these things, I think that would be way to go. And I see a lot of people nodding their heads, so that sounds really good. So just a quick recap. We're going to take a break. How are you guys feeling here? You guys want to take a break or? Okay, awesome. Okay, just a couple more comments and then we're going to take a break. At that break, here's what we want you to do. We want you to come and follow us to our bush camp. We want to show you just 400 or 500 yards down by the creek. We take a break and we just want to show you our bush camp. And then we'll come back here and continue. So a couple more comments and then we'll take a break.
Donna Jane. I'm one of the oldest granddaughters. I won't say the oldest. I'm May of Sass, and she's got 4 generations sitting here with her today. I grew up, she raised me up very traditional culture. I try to pass on the culture to my kids. So we go hunting a lot, and I come from Blueberry, which is a very divided community that doesn't do a lot of things like their traditional cultural lives, including their elders, their youth, and I really wish that it happened there so we don't just have 31 people that speak our language. It's, to me, I like listening to elders. I like listening to all your stories and welcome everybody. It's nice to meet everybody here. And I like listening to elders when they talk because that's where I gain a lot of my knowledge. And if you don't listen, you don't learn. So a lot of times when she's talking, I always learn to be quiet, to listen. And as a young girl, she used to make me go and clean up for my grandma. My grandma Davis, she's not here anymore, but she used to make me go and clean up, and not make me, I loved to go and sit with my grandma and listen to her stories too. And all the other elders that were in Blueberry. And there was a bunch of young, my generation that used to go around and clean up and listen to them. And then as things modernized in our community, it's like those connections died along with the technology that came into our communities, the drugs, the alcohol, and it was easy to fall into that because even our elders were doing it. So it was easy to fall into that pattern. So a lot of the teachings come from the elders, from our leaders, to keep this alive, to support your people, to teach your youngsters to listen when you're talking. A lot of times she'd say, Zach, I gotta be quiet. I'm one of her oldest ones, and I still listen when she's talking. But a lot of times I see, like, in different communities, you see the elders are talking, but nobody's listening. So I think it's a lot of, comes from a lot of our community leaders to support your elders, to support your younger generations, and to bring that alive in Blueberry. Instead of only having 31 people, we need to bring that number up because that's a very sad number to have only 31 people that know. And I understand what she's saying to me. I know a little bit, and it's like Gary said, you know a little bit, you know something. So it's time to bring this back to our younger generation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pat Jansen. My position is SIWM3461. I've been initiated free, but I come from the Horse Lake First Nation. I'm a band member there, which was originally called the Gunbay Beaver Band, similarly to Fort St. John Beaver Band, which used to go into Blueberry. And my family comes from Sweet River, Dunvegan. My father's from Horse Lake. But my grandfather is the family of Fort Nelson. And he was related to Michael Winnie. They had a big house in Fort Nelson in the 40s. And they would travel by dog team across the Hayes Lake. And that's where our other family was, right, Hayes Lake. And so they traveled by 2 dog teams. One was filled with equipment, and then my grandmother drove the other dog team with all the kids. They had 9 of them. So there was lots of kids. Not all at that time, but anyway. So that's where my lineage comes from. And I know my Beaver roots are strong, and I know I moved to Fort St. John 38 years ago for a reason. And I'm learning about my family through the Beaver side of my family. And I'm presently district vice principal for school district 60. I'm the principal for school district 60. I'm also a sessional instructor at Northern Lights College. I teach First Nation studies as well as anthropology. So my challenge to you is I want to echo Billy's words. Billy's words of saying we need to work together. We can't do this alone. And we as a school district and as a college are the same. We have to work together. And we tried to do a few things, have some elders come into the school. I can thank some of the growing members for coming. have Shirley, Annie, Billy, Sammy. We have about a handful of them that come to schools, and we pay them to come. But fortunately, we are directed by our advisory council. We have members from each of the First Nations as well as organizations in town. And we are starting, I'm excited to say, an Elders in Residence program here in our district. And we're formalizing how we are bringing our elders into the schools. So I'm really excited about that. We have some money set aside. And so we need to get elders of Mayo Tassin and acknowledge them because they are our doctors. They are our doctors of the culture. And they are our linguistics. We're really excited. We also have two Dundee support staff that work with two of our schools, and they're bringing the Dundee language to the schools. So I'd like to make that more accessible to other schools, not just the schools that they're at. When I did my master's, I did part of it in Hawaii. In Hawaii, they had, you know how big Hawaii is? I'm not sure, but there's many thousands of people. They only had 500 speakers that could speak Hawaiian. When I was there in 2016, they opened a university in the Hawaiian language, and they speak all Hawaiian. So yes, they only have one language, but somebody had to do it. Research, how does that done? Figure that out. So my challenge also is when First Nations get information, share it. Because if it's not shared, how do we pass it on? You know, we hang on to our knowledge, but on the other hand, if you hang on to it, it goes with you when you leave. So elders, please share it. Help us. How do we teach the culture if we can't access it from somebody else? So that's my challenge. Thank you.
Where did it start? Okay, who's over there? Okay, give her the mic over there.
Thank you. My name is Ella Jessie Pirro, and I come from the Beaver First Nation. Just to give you a little bit of the history of my family. My dad, his name was Lubet, which is a Beaver Indian name. And then he was born John Pirro Cornier. He dropped the Cornier off in the later years. Now he was just called John Pirro. And then he married my mother. Her name was Madeline Conda Martel, and she became Madeline Pirro. So, out of a group of 12 people in our family, of all siblings, 7 brothers and 5 girls there was. We lost 2 brothers, and then there wind up only 5 boys and 5 girls left in the family. One of the things that my mom and dad taught us was that we always try to keep teaching our kids how to do the things the proper way, and part of it, and a large part I found out later, was that they should have been speaking a lot of Beaver. But we didn't do that because of something called Indian Day School. And before that, it was a residential school. So when my 2 older brothers were in residential school, and my dad and and his brother, over chief and council a long time ago, they wanted a school built on the reserve. Not what happened was the school was built, and then the rest of us, we wound up going to this Indian Day School. Now today, we find out that there's a big lawsuit going on, and it has to do with an Indian Day School. And in that whole concept of their education with Indian affairs, or as they called it, Dominion Canada, and the chief and councils at that time had to work with Indian agents when they built the school and the programs that went with it. Now, we have to forget about our language. We went to school, we got on a bus, we went to school, and I remember getting a strap on my hand if I tried to speak my own language. Well, then I couldn't. And then for years, I had to tell my dad that, I really wanted to speak our language, but we couldn't. And now, I practically lost it. But my mom and dad always talked to us in Beaver, and my dad always spoke all the other languages that he learned. And he spoke 7 different languages. So, when we went to school, sometimes it made you feel like, are we supposed to be ashamed of our own language? No. But that's what happened. And I don't like the fact that I forgot some words. I have to look, when I'm telling a story or whatever, and my brother is talking to me, I have to ask him this, what color is that? What were you just saying? And I have to ask him, and then the rest of us would always say, what color is blue? How do you say red? And I'd forget. And he would look at us and he'd just tell us right off the bat. So, years later, I went to further education. I went to school to learn how to be a legal stenography person and a bookkeeper. Well, I finished all those, and I was not speaking in Beaver at all, because it was all English. And then went home, talked to my mom and dad, and they were talking to me again in Beaver. Well, I had to think back and think, geez, what did mom just tell me? I had to ask her, and then I'd have to record it and say, Mom, I don't know what this word means. And she would have to tell me. And now, I find that later on in the years when I went back to university and college and became a teacher, one of the things that we learned over the years was no matter how much you try to speak your own language, you forget. Why? Because I had to learn my language in my head, and then I have to think, oh my God, how am I supposed to say this? Because I don't have my mom and my dad around anymore to tell us all these words. And then it gets so that when you're in college and university, you would think in English. It's really hard to think in Beaver when you're taking courses. So you lose a lot. And it's not your fault. It's just the way society is run these days. So I would like to put it upon you that in order to come up with a tool for the Beaver Indian language is to teach the people these words that are very comprehensive.
And it just means a whole lot of things in said in different ways. And the programs or the applications that you decide to use in computers to give to kids, I would like to see something like that developed, because a lot of my kids, my grandkids, and I see all the kids on the reserve, when they're talking to each other or not, they're looking at their little computers and their phones and they're texting each other. So, again, not thinking in Beaver Indian language. So, that's what I would like to see, is a program developed with a lot of Beaver Indian words, the symbols, and how to make it so much fun for kids that they could just look at it and say, yeah, I learned my language. And thank you very much.
That is so profound what you're saying. Because one of the big things, the challenge we face, is what we call intergenerational trauma. What happened to a lot of you in residential schools, in day schools, we still feel it today. And those are the kind of things we need to heal it. Because I recalled some of the things that I didn't grow up in residential school or day school, but we used to live in a day school after it was shut down. So that was my experience with it. But my experience with it was my uncles and my mother and everybody that went through that. And they used to tell us stories about how they were just hungry, but they were forced to sit there to learn English, and then when they tried to speak their language, they got strapped. So that is a big effect that we're now going through. And we applaud all of you that went through that. You're nanas of the lion. You're big, you're strong, because you made it through that. The question is, how are we going to take that learning and then create Beaver, Dene school? We can even have bush schools, and we can take all that stuff and then repurpose it now. And create our own schools the way we really want to teach them. So that's what I take out of what you're saying. Certainly, we need a collective Beaver language all over, and even some kind of commonality. But one of the main things is about the trauma, the effects on the language. Because, you know, today what we're dealing with is those dysfunctional behaviors and talking about that all the time. Like, why? Why are we wasting our time talking about, you know, that person did this because they were drunk and this and this and that? Most of our time is talking about that kind of behavior instead of the good behavior, elders and those kind of things. So it does affect everything we've done, and it's what we call intergenerational trauma. And a lot of people still deal with that today. And part of it is that how are we going to deal with that? We've got to re-educate ourselves. Take back what is ours. What is really the good things about our culture, our heritage. And part of it on the political level, we're doing that with government. We're doing that with our partners. Today, it's different than even with 15 years ago. Before, we couldn't even get 1 penny out of a company when they were drilling all over our territory. Before we know it, they'll show up here. Next morning they're going, Indians don't want to work. They're just going. Make a lot of damage up there. But since then, we've been standing up to them because the elders, with their knowledge and support, say we've got to stand up for our rights. Part of our rights is definitely United Nations Declaration. It talked about where indigenous peoples have the right to speak their language. They have the right to think the way they want to think. They have the right to their own religion and spirituality. They have the right to be able to do these things. It's on an international level now. Just recently, Canada was one of them that didn't want to support it. And they just lip service it, and they still do that. But, you know, we gotta keep pushing them. All the things that you're saying today is that, yes, we need to have our own schooling, our own system. That is becoming very, very clear to me. International level, trade, some kind of trade. I think Chinook language was actually developed for trade in the early 1800s. There was a language called Chinook, and I heard that it was used for trading, for business. Maybe that's the kind of language, the Deni language we have, about doing business with each other, sharing about our spirituality. What I understand ever since I was a kid was that that means there's a creator, there's a God, but he's all part of here. In order to understand it, you've got to get close to it and use it. All the plants and medicines and the water, all those things that our ancestors talk about, it's a spiritual relation to those things that makes us Deni. That's what makes me. That's what I stand for. It's our heritage. And I think that when I was a kid, when Grandma said, "Ji true about that," that's when I now understand, after 50 years later. So it takes a lifetime to learn some of these wisdom, knowledge. But we got to get past the intergenerational trauma of our people. And a lot of people went through the residential schools, day schools, down at the Peterson Crossing. Now they had a day school there. A lot of our people went through there. Some people in Fort Nelson went to Lower Post, right? So there is people that have affected by these schooling and these day schools and residential, basically policies. They don't want you to be Indian before, but now we're coming back up. We're going to be generations of living the way we want to live. So that's a really important thing as part of a history that we need to train and teach our young people about. The question is, like, how are we going to do it? And that's what we're working towards right now. Jerry, if you want to, before we take a break here, Jerry wants to say a few more things.
We started losing our language in the 70s. Before that, it was all in order. In the late 60s, my brother Lawrence came back from Edmonton, TB Hospital. He was about 11 or 12. He didn't speak. No, little bit English, but in our language, nothing. Within a year, he speak it again. Because we speak, all of us in our house. You go to my grandmother, they speak Beaver there. It's possible. We're not going to lose it. We don't want to lose it. In the late 70s, somewhere, me and Sammy talked about that many times. There's some group here, some kids went to Blueberry. They came back, they speak English. It started from there, slowly. Pretty soon. And the A, right, Sammy? Remember? We all have to speak in English. There were some white people that stayed with us, so that worked for the band, and then we have no choice, but we have to try to speak English, even if we don't know how to speak English. There, we had class, Gary, and then the rest, but no kids come there. Even in upper primary school, elementary school. White kids show up, but our people didn't, some of them. Well, my grandma teach me at home, they said, so they never go to that class. Where's your grandma? In town, casino. And it's really hard. We have to work together to push them there. Then I think it's possible that we're not going to use it. We can speak it in our own house, like here. Next door don't speak it, it don't go anywhere. If next door speak it all, like our language, then it'll spread out again. We can bring it back. We saw what I don't want to, and I want that to be, one of the elders said, you're going to lose it if you don't use it. I don't want that, I just we saw what she said. Won't you out, which is it? Yeah. I was the somebody. Tawas are dead on the Chihaki now, it's going to be hard, even harder. 1987, we were in a conference in Brandon, Manitoba, West Ojibwe, Dakota, Ojibwe. After one of the conference, there were 4-day conference there. They took me to another room about this big, 180 kids. One asked how in Taji they said, we don't know one word. We lost it, they said. My grandpa died with it, our grandmother. Nothing recorded. How are we going to get it back? They said they felt really bad. So I told them it's possible. Somehow you can get it back. There was a Bible translator that spent over 50 years with us, English people. I told him one time, I wonder if God's understand our language. He gave it to you, he told me. He gave you the love language. It comes from him. He told me, said to you, I can't forget that.
Our language is very important. We need to be able to address it in different ways. Today, we have more opportunity than we ever did. I don't know if some of you may know the history of it, but the original Montney Reserve, 18,163 acres, was basically given to the returning veterans. And they just kicked us out, put fences up. My grandma told me one time, she said, some of our people were hunting up here, way up in the Milligan area, and they were going back. They stopped there down at Peterson, Alasaton. That's where the original name. From there, they were heading back to Montney. And all of a sudden, they come across whiting, or a big fence. They couldn't get their horses through, and they were confused. What's going on? And then all of a sudden, they figured out that they said, this is not your land anymore. The white people told them that. And they were all confused about it. Like, how come all of a sudden we can't even go anywhere? So over the years, we see the effects of our people happening into civilization and colonization. However, the claim was wrong. Our claim against government in Canada was won because of the stories of elders. The judges, the lawyers, they couldn't figure out how to cross, or how they try to cross-examine you so that all of a sudden, oh, he's lying. What he's saying, he's making it up. But our elders were so strong on their stories that we won them, we beat them. So that's why I feel honorable to continue standing up for the language, for the culture, the history. Our challenge today is innovation and creativity. How are we going to do it in a way that we can be using the vehicle that's available for us right now? I remember when I was a kid, I was on the tail end of the dog teams. The dog teams was still in existence when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. 1965 or something around there. And then wagons, horses came, wagons came, trucks came, cars came with no mufflers. So there was a lot of cars running around with loud mufflers, so you know you were cruising around. So, and then today, what do we got? Fancy vehicles with Bluetooth and everything like that, maps. We've gone through a long, long history. That's why we call this, Stone Age or Ice Age to Digital Age. That's how long we survived as Beaver people, Dene people, Athabasca. We survived a long, long time. So with that, I want to take a break because I think we need to get up and kind of move around. We want to invite you to come and take a look at our camp, bush camp. It's not set up 100%, but I just want you to show you because this is one of the ways of teaching the next generation. We call it cultural spaces today when we're talking about people, about, what kind of cultural space can we create that represents our culture and heritage. So we're going to show you that, and later on we'll also show you the dance area, the tea dance area, and tomorrow we're going to show you the brand new church being built. It's on the Chi'akitan, where people pray. But that's a foundation of who we are as people. We like to pray, ask for help. So let's take a break for about half an hour, and then we'll come back, and then we'll continue. So if you just go out the door, go to the left, and meet me out in the front, and we'll guide you to there. Those of you that have trouble walking or something, it's okay. We'll find a way to